Hey class, this is Philip Stewart doing my Bible study. It's based upon the parable of the sower. So let's jump right in. It's coming from Matthew chapter 13, verse 11 through 23. It's a lot of verses, so I'm going to let you read it on your own time. But the basis of this is coming from verses 20 through 23. So I am going to read those for the reference here. So starting at verse 20 says, "The seed on the rocky soil represents those who hear the message and immediately receive it with joy. But since they don't have deep roots, they don't last long. They fall away as soon as they have problems or are persecuted for believing God's word. The seed that fell amongst the thorns represents those who hear God's word, but all too quickly the message is crowded out by the worries of life and the lure of wealth, so no fruit is produced. The seed that fell on good soil represents those who truly hear and understand God's word and produce a harvest of 30, 60, or even 100 times as much as have been planted." So this comes from the New Living Translation. Sounds a little different, but the concept is still the same. Of the three different scenarios that come when people receive the word, whether it comes from Bible study or from a service or a sermon, this gives three illustrations of how it could go when that person is receiving it. So in this passage, Jesus is talking to his disciples and letting them know, he cautions them to understand that people may be going through different things and they may react differently to the teachings. So this way, as deacons, we can show compassion for them in their situation and not feel discouraged if they don't react the way that we anticipate that they should react. So I'm just going to go through the three scenarios from those scriptures that we just read. So the first scenario is someone who's new to the faith, and the word says that they receive it with joy. So it means that they will capture the spirit that the word was given is good news to them. They like what they hear. They accept it with open arms. But the word is not something that will necessarily keep it close to their heart. Since they're new, they don't have experience. They may not have, an experience with God like we have, and they may be stuck in a sinful situation, or they may still have a sinful mindset. They may not even be fully converted. So when adversity comes, they don't have the roots or the commitment like a seasoned saint would have. So since roots aren't going anywhere, it takes a lot of force to pull them out. I remember when I had hedges all around my property when I first bought my house way back when in 2002. I had these ugly hedges all around my property, and I had a guy come in and cut the hedges down, but they had to pull the roots. They had to put a chain around the roots and hook that chain up to a pickup truck and actually physically drive the roots out of the ground. So that's just an illustration to show that, the strength that a person who has roots in there. So they don't have those roots. So because they don't have it, they don't have the ability to withstand things that may come up that may be hard for them to keep that word close to their heart. So the roots, as I illustrated, they're really strong. They're good because they help the plant or whatever the roots are in to get nutrients and water to grow. So this is something that they don't have, so we can't be discouraged if they don't actually have the reaction that we anticipate that they would have. It takes time to grow roots. Those roots that are around my property, it took years for that to actually dig and grow over time, and things like that. So we have to keep that in mind. The second scenario is where the word goes out to someone who's consumed with the cares of this world, and they may take some time to actually benefit from the word that they're receiving. And even though they're receiving it, they may not actually bear fruit. And there's many reasons why something might not bear fruit. Just in the natural, just to do a comparison, a crop may not bear fruit because of frost damage or poor pollination or competing with other crops for nutrients in the area, or inadequate sun, or too much exposure. So it's a lot of different things that can cause a crop not to grow. And I wanted to just do a small parallel to see what some of these things might be in the spiritual. So frost in the natural is cold and it damages the tissue of the tree. But in the spiritual, once that tissue is damaged, it won't grow properly. So what are the things that you need to do to keep it growing properly is you need to have better communication with God. You need to pray, praise, worship regularly. And these things might help you to feel warm towards God, not cold, like I said with the frost there. So another thing you can do is, if you don't have a really good communication with God, you may start to question his plan. You may have to start to question his love, or question the devotion that you have to him. So it's tough to grow when you're not connected, and when you're not when you're second guessing your relationship. So another thing that is cause things not to bear fruit is poor pollination. So basically, pollination is when the seed that has been planted gets fertilized, and when that happens, the fruit enlarges, and then it starts to bud out. So if it does not have good pollination, the fruit can be twisted or could be deformed, which is proof to show that it wasn't actually fertilized properly. So sometimes it may start to grow and then fall off, and we don't want that. So we want to fertilize the seed that we are planting, and to fertilize it, we're helping it to get the nutrients that it needs in the soil. So the fertilizer that we can give in the spiritual would be like encouragement. We can give encouragement to new believers. Some of them don't have the same kind of fervency that we have, so we need to remind them of their progress, remind them of God's power, remind them of His love. And as they go through trials, we need to pray with them as well as pray for them to help to fertilize that seed and see that fruit grow over time. And in the last scenario, we talked about how the person receives the word and it actually falls on what they say is good ground. And good ground is prepared to take in the word. It's ready to understand the word. It's ready to reproduce fruit. The believer has roots. They have the proper soil. It's watered properly. It has the nutrients that it needs. The seed is fertilized. All of those perfect conditions in this third scenario. And they're ready to actually take the word and apply the principles to their own life. They're ready to tell others about what's going on. They're ready to give a testimony. And that's when when you're able to give a testimony and someone is converted from your testimony, that's effectively showing fruit. So any tree or plant, it needs time to bear fruit. You don't get a healthy crop as soon as you put the seed in there. It takes time. It has to go through the seasons. It has to, the seed has to germinate. It has to sprout up. It has to get sturdy, and then it has to start to bear the fruit. And as the farmer or whoever is tending to this fruit, they have to keep it protected from cold, drought, pesticides, animals, pests, disease, like all kinds of stuff. It has to be protected. So even though it has the soil, it does have the nutrients, it still has to be cared for. And as a believer, as a deacon, as a Bible study leader, these are the kind of things that we need to keep in mind and definitely give to the people who are listening to us. We need to pray earnestly for them, be patient with them, and help to nurture them so they can bear fruit over time. So that's my Bible study, and I look forward to hearing your comments.